And now we have another landscape shot, but this time taken with the night mode turned on. This one is from the Huawei ultra-wide sensor, and this one is from the Pixel ultra-wide sensor. Now, as for Pixel, I don't know why it's not in focus this time. I don't know what's going on. So the Huawei did it in focus. In terms of rendition of the image, the Pixel appears to tone down its bluish tone, but still has the wrong color. Like both has the wrong color. Like the Huawei also has the wrong color. So yeah. In terms of rendition, I can't really complain much because of how it's not in focus. But again, the Pixel just not doing a good job at removing or controlling the noise in the sky. In terms of exposure, I kind of like the way of Huawei exposed image. It appears to be sharper, but then again, the rendition here is not gonna like really a fair comparison because the Pixel here is not in focus. So that's that. I can't really say much, but yeah, that's just the thing I want to point out is that the noises in the sky is more visible in the Pixel night mode, while the Huawei did a better job at controlling the noises. But then again, the Huawei does take up to 8 seconds to expose this image, and then like take 10 seconds to like expose this image, to render this image, while the Pixel just take less than a second to do it. So yeah. But then again, like this is also kind of like also like a practical test. So which one that can like get into the focus better. So in terms of the practicality here, I'm going to choose the Huawei because of how the focus here on the Pixel is just way off. But yeah, I do complain about the color of the Huawei fail to render it. The half color here is supposed to be wide, like here, not blue, like this. But anyways, in terms of practicality, the Huawei is the winner. It's just that the shutter speed is just like too low or like too slow. And now we have another landscape sets of images taken with the night mode enabled. This one was taken with the main sensor. This one is now from the Pixel, and this one is from the Huawei. Now, one thing you should notice right away is that this is the first time the Pixel shows its light flare, especially here and then here. So both fails to control, both algorithm fails to like fix the light flare, and still the Huawei here still has that still fail at controlling the light flares. Anyways, here the Huawei's fail to control the noise. As even if you don't zoom in, you can see the noise right away. As for the Pixel, it did a better job at rendering the sky and hiding the mass, like and hiding the noises. In terms of what is more accurate to the scene, or an accurate rendition, or like accurate representation to the scene, the Huawei did a better job because this is the light, like the light from the street light is supposed to affect the overall image. So yeah, everything is supposed to have that orange tinge to it. But the Huawei here appears to have better exposure, but also allows other color to like also pop, so it's not like strongly affected by the yellow light. Like here, the rendition of the light here is more accurate to real life compared to the Pixel. The Pixel allows, like I said, more correct rendition, allows the light here affecting the image, while this part the Huawei allows or like has more neutral rendition, similar to how the wall is. Like you can tell almost differentiate, like there is a little green here. So yeah, in terms of rendition of this image, I prefer the Huawei just because it is more well exposed, and then it allows the color to be on its own. But then again, if you were to prefer more correct rendition to the scene, Huawei, I mean the Pixel is more accurate, but then again it gets the color of from this house wrong, and also like yeah. But in terms of practicality, the Pixel is more practical because it takes less than a second to render this whole image, while the Huawei has slower shutter speed, taking 6 seconds to render this whole image. So here we have another landscape shot taken with the ultra-wide sensor with the night mode disabled. So this one is from the Pixel and this one is from the Huawei. Now, both has the same amount of shutter speed, while the Huawei has higher ISO. Anyways, the exposure here, the Pixel exposure here is closer to the Huawei, but it does introduce a lot of noise. Like you can notice a lot of noise even when not zooming in, but yeah, just make it more obvious, this is a lot of noise. As for the Huawei, it did a better job at masking the noise, especially the light flare is like distracting the whole image. So yeah, in terms of which one I prefer, I definitely prefer the Huawei because how well it masks the noises in this picture. But in terms of details, I feel like the Huawei might did it better. But then again, the color reproduction for this sets of images is not correct, it's not accurate. But yeah, for this image, the win goes for the Huawei just because how well it is hiding the noises in the sky compared to what the Pixel is doing. So yeah, here the practical one is the Huawei. I just kind of don't like how it handles the light flare. Like, it is really terrible at handling the light flares. But whatever. And now we're taking a look at the 1x shot from the main sensor, taken with the normal mode. This one is from the Pixel, and this one is from the Huawei. Now, both has its strengths and weaknesses. Like, I kind of like how the Pixel kind of like darkened the image here, like keep it the background in the dark, but it also fails to control these light flares here, while the Huawei seems to be doing a better job of controlling the light flares, but also overexposing the image, like hiding this part of hiding this part of the photo with the light. And I personally don't like the way Huawei kind of like show the background. But I gotta praise the Huawei algorithm here a little bit because how it kind of like mess the noise, so it's like really kind of like background, and then you barely notice it compared to the photos from the Pixel. In terms of the sharpness here, I think it does goes to the Pixel, or maybe not. I'm not sure. I feel like both has the same amount of detail, but you gotta understand that Huawei has that tendency to like over sharpen the image, so that's that. Do whatever you want with that information. I don't think. No. If I remember correctly, these two images isn't like represented correctly because, again, as I mentioned, the color of this street light is supposed to be very orange, not yellowish, while the Pixel has that light, like very like almost pale yellowish, like almost kind of like going to the white rendition of this image, and it's not really good. Both are not really accurate in terms of representation, but in terms of more pleasing, I feel like I like the Huawei's rendition, but then again, some people kind of like this image because how clean it is, but then again, the light flare is kind of like bothersome. So I leave it to you guys on what is your choice in this, like which one do you pick as the winner for these sets of images. Alright, now we're looking at the night mode shot taken with the ultra wide sensor. This one is from the Pixel and this one is from the Huawei. Now, both is not doing a good job at kind of like handling the light flares. Like, this is jarring, and the Huawei is just also not good. In terms of rendering the sky, I kind of like the way Huawei did it because it kind of like mess or like hide the noise a lot better than what was going on in the Pixel images. Now, again, the Pixel takes only less than a second, while the Huawei takes about 8 seconds. So that's that. In terms of quality, I do believe that both are not really that good. Like, both doesn't really produce an like praiseworthy image. The Pixel, again, with the tendency of its bluish light, like here, it's so blue, and then the color, the light hitting the vase, and also this part of the house, and then down here it's also so bluish. While the Huawei has better rendition, like here it is more white, which is more correct to the house source of light from that house. So again, with the previous photo, I don't know, I can't pick a winner because both has its strength and flaws, and yeah, I don't really know how to pick a winner in this one. So yeah, I leave it job to pick a winner for you guys. And now we're looking at this. And now we're looking at this 1x shot from the main sensor with the night mode enabled. So this one is from the Pixel and this one is from the Huawei. Now, with the Pixel, it has that better exposure, but it seems the algorithm seems to fail to control the light flares. Like, you can see the light flares here and here. Like, for the Huawei, it managed to control the light flares. Like, you can barely see it. You can barely see it, but you can tell there are some light flares here in this part of the image. Now, this part here was having this strong light source overpowering. In terms of overall exposure, I kind of prefer the one on the Pixel. As for Huawei, I don't find it that pleasing. And one more thing that I like about the Pixel is that it's able to expose this part of the of that scene, while the Huawei keeping it dark. Also, the rendition of the sky here is a lot better. The Pixel managed to kind of like mask the noises from the sky, while the Huawei has this kind of like noises coming through. So for this one, I'm going to go with the Pixel. But again, the color accuracy for this scene is not that good. But I do praise the Pixel for its exposure, like how well exposed the overall image is and how well it controls the noises on in the sky. As for the Huawei, I kind of like the way it's controlled the highlight. I mean the light flares. Other than that, both seems to have similar quality. But the Huawei does uses takes up to 5 seconds to render this image, while the Pixel takes less than a second to render this image. Anyways, I think I'm going to give it a win for the Pixel, despite its inability to like render this image. Like in its ability to like render this image accurately. And then the light flares, like, yep. But yeah, I kind of like the way the Pixel do this. So I think the winner for these sets of images should be Google. But then again, you are free to share your opinion. And now we have sets of images from the ultra-wide sensor taken with the normal mode. So this one is from the Pixel and this one is from the Huawei. Now the Pixel here is again keeping it real by rendering the image in darker exposure. Like this is what you see in real life. Well, the Huawei really did brighten these photos a lot. And doing so, this semi or semi night mode on Huawei is like only take also less than a second compared to its night mode counterpart, while the Pixel does take its faster shutter speed. In terms of ISO, the Huawei has higher ISO. To be honest, I kind of like the rendition of this image from Huawei because it is lighter and I can see a lot more. But of course, the weakness here is that it's not really in focus. Like anything in the dark is like full of noises, and then there are like smudges everywhere, so it's not like detailed or sharp. But it is acceptable considering it only takes less than a second to render this image. And again, I kind of prefer the Huawei's rendition of this shot when compared to the Pixel. But then again, option is a good thing. But for me, I kind of prefer this a lot more since it only takes less than a second to render this image. So this is what your smartphone should be doing. As for my opinion, I believe that this is what your smartphone should be doing. So again, I believe that the win deserves to go to the Huawei. And here's the sets of images taken with the normal mode on the main sensor. So this one is from the Pixel and this one is from the Huawei. Now the Huawei again has this very warm look. And again, this is not night mode, this is normal mode. And the time it needs to take to render this image is less than a second. While this is the time that the Pixel took to render this image. And also the ISO on the Huawei here is higher. Again, with the previous ultra-wide shot, I prefer the Huawei's rendition of this image. And the color here is almost accurate to real life. Like, again, I don't really mind if the night mode is like brightening the image and then making it like looks like this. So yeah, I don't mind. I like the way it exposed the image, and it only took 1 second to render this much image. So yeah, when it comes to night mode, the Huawei is the algorithm on the Huawei P40 Pro is my favorite. If only they came out a little more detailed and in focus instead of like that blurry maze and a lot of noises. But then again, if this is what we get in less than 1 second, I love it. Well, this is what came out from the Pixel. Like again, the Pixel keeping it dark. Like the exposure is like pretty dark, but the rendition here is like a little too dark because in real life, the light here is supposed to be a little brighter. Yeah, I like the rendition of the Huawei here. It brings out like what's like hidden like in the shadow area, like something that is not visible. Like you can't even tell there are like this what is potholes filled with water, similar to what you're seeing here in the front. So in terms of the focusing here is a lot better compared to the ultra-wide sensor. And then it also captured the light behind the house. And the exposure here is very good, and I love it. So yeah, I believe that I should give the win, because I like it so much, I'm going to give the win to the Huawei here. So yeah, for this sets of images, I'm going with the Huawei, just because how well it renders this image. And it also gets this light here and behind there correctly. Like if we were to take a look at this pixel photos, it's like really turning it blue. Like it's like using that cooler white balance. So yeah, again, I prefer the rendition from the Huawei. And now we're looking at the night shot taken with the ultra-wide sensor. This one is from the Pixel and this one is from the Huawei. Now when it comes to rendition of this image, I think the Pixel appears to be more sharper, but I'm not sure, let me check. Yes, I feel like it has the ability to render things a tiny bit better, but not that by a huge margin. But in terms of like near accurate rendition of this image, the Huawei really did a good job, because the way it renders this light here again and here is much more correct. Now in terms of the whole image, here you can see how the Pixel algorithm failed to reduce the noises in the sky, while the Huawei did a much better at masking the noise. Like if you were to take a look at this image here, you don't even realize that there are noises in the sky, but on the Pixel you can notice it right away at a slight glance. And then also the white balance here is like wrong because it goes with blue, like it renders the light in blue color instead of this kind of like whitish. So yeah, now the picture here from the Huawei is a little bit pale when compared to its main sensor counterpart, but I kind of like it because I still like it because how well it exposes it does expose this image better. Because if we were to take a look at this part of the tree, the pixel is kind of like darkening it up or like keep it in the dark, and also we can kind of like see the trails like going through the house while the pixel is just keeping it dark. So in terms of like practicality between these two, I will definitely go with the Huawei again because how well it exposes the image, how well it controls the noises, and this is near accurate rendition of the situation. And now we have night mode set taken with the main sensor. This one is from the Pixel and this one is from the Huawei. Now, again, the Huawei has that a little bit more better exposure, but also since it's taken 7 seconds to expose this image, they are bound to have that motion blur. So the image is like taking a hit, while the Pixel takes less time, only less than a second, and then it able to like render the same almost the same amount of exposure with the Pixel. Now, the rendition of the light here are not perfect, as you can see. Both has this bluish rendition, but the Pixel has better control over the light, as you can see. Kind of like the Pixel here is kind of like overblowing it a little bit, but then again, it is a preference thing. And one thing that makes the Pixel different from its ultra-wide night mode counterpart is that its ability to control noises in the sky is a lot better than the ultra-wide. Yeah, yes, that is like, so I noticed. So for the Pixel in like nighttime, or in low light situation, I definitely recommend you to turn on the night mode or the night side. And then for the Huawei, you just go and use its semi night mode processing, because you can get like same amount of brightness with just the less amount of time, like even less than a second. Yeah, in terms of like practicality, in terms of the practicality and how it clean up noises and that exposure, I will go with the Pixel, considering how Huawei takes 7 seconds and like introducing motion blurs to the image. The Pixel images here is definitely my pick. So the winner thus goes to the Pixel for these sets of images. And now coming back again to the normal mode taken with the ultra wide sensor. This one is from the Pixel and this one is from the Huawei. Now both has a similar amount of shutter time while the Huawei has higher ISO. Again, the Pixel is again having that noises going on in the sky and an overall like darker exposure, and the light rendition here is like way off. The Huawei did it better and has like cleaner noises, but in terms of like sharpness, I do believe both are similar. But then again, the light flares kind of like ruins the image, but the color of the source of the light is more accurate to reality. So that is one thing to note. And again, you get this picture with just under 1 second of exposure. And in terms of like, again, of the sharpness, both are same. Like I can't really judge because this part here is like really dark. But I feel like here the rendition from the Huawei is a lot better because then again, I don't really mind if the night photos is not really dark. And I do prefer it does night semi-processing because how less time it takes how to like render this image, and then how like it captures the scene more accurately. Like the color of this light source here is more accurately, and then the overall, like, of course, the overall street light is like still wrong because it is kind of like yellowish, but I felt like this part here is almost correct. But yeah, again, but then again, I always like kind of like as general, I prefer this Huawei semi night mode photos or like semi night mode processing on both of its ultra wide and main sensor. So I feel like this part or this for this set of images, the win does goes to Huawei. Just the minus with the minus point because of how terrible it is at controlling the light flares. Now we have normal mode on the main sensor. This one was taken with the Pixel and this one was taken with the Huawei. Now again, the Pixel here is not doing so well with its night, like the sky noises. Like you kind of like see it even when I'm not zooming in. So now you can see it pretty well. As for the Huawei, I like the better exposure of the Huawei, but it also does introduce noises, but it really like kind of like did a good job at reducing the noise. The Huawei here again with the correct rendition of the night, like the light source from this house, but the way it renders the street light is not accurate. Both are not accurate. But in terms of what is more pleasant to look at, I think this order just goes to the Huawei. Now again, the Huawei has that light source issue, like here it's like a laser shooting to the sky or whatever, and also the Huawei seems to be capturing this cloud details here, like clouds. So and then the time it took to take this image is less than a second. So does with the Pixel, but the Pixel has darker exposure. But the ISO is nearly similar with just 300 points of difference. In terms of quality of these images, I feel like the Huawei is doing a better job. But then again, I would like to remind you that the Huawei has that tendency to over sharpen its image. But in terms of overall pleasantness of this image, I think that honor definitely goes to Huawei. And now we have night mode images taken with the ultra wide sensor. So this one is from the Pixel and this one is from the Huawei. Now again, the Huawei has higher exposure time of 8 seconds and also higher ISO, while the Pixel only takes 1 second with lower ISO. Now in terms of color reproduction, this is more accurate. Like the street light rendition here is more accurate to real life, especially the part of the wall here. While the rest of wall and then the street here is like wrong, still wrong, but then again, it is a lot better than what is being rendered on the Huawei. So yeah, the color rendition of the street light or of the light source from this house is still better on. It's still more accurate on the Huawei when compared to the Pixel. In terms of the sharpness or detail, I think both do a similar job or has that similar rendition. In terms of noises in the sky, the Pixel does a good job at rendering or masking the image, similarly to how Huawei did. So again, for this night shot, I think I'm going to I prefer the Pixel here because of how it's kind of like rendered the street light more accurately, and I feel like it has like better look to it when compared to the Pixel. So I think I'm going to give the win to the Pixel here, again because of its practicality, because it only needs less than a second to like do its job. And now we have the 1x main shot taken with the night mode. This one is from the Pixel and this one is from the Huawei. Now here you kind of see how the Huawei is not doing a good job at masking the noises in the sky. In terms of exposure, I feel like the Huawei did a better job at this top part of the trees here, well compared to the Pixel. But then again, I have to praise the Pixel for its ability to like reduce the noise. Look, so I like the way it exposes image, like this top part of the tree here compared to the Pixel. But considering it does take 6 seconds for the Huawei to like render this image, I think I prefer the overall rendition from the Pixel. And surprisingly, this time is the Pixel is a lot closer at rendering the street, this house light source from this house more accurately when compared to its previous shot. But in terms of color rendition, I don't know why the Pixel decided to go backward against this image that kind of like produced the most like almost near accurate color of the street light minus the bluish light of this house. So yeah, I'm not sure what's going on here, but then again, this is what you get out of the main camera. So in terms of the practicality, I prefer, again, because of the practicality reason, I prefer the Pixel here, the Pixel rendition of this image here, because of how quick it is to like take the image, and then how well it's kind of clean up the noises in the sky. But the exposure here is kind of like not really looking good, and the Huawei here kind of did better. But yeah, for this image, I prefer the Pixel. But then again, this is your choice too, so let me know in the comment what you think of these images, sets of images. And now you're looking at the sets of images. Like this is the last set of images from this place taken with the night mode. So this is when I start to use the night mode, like the maximum of time on the Pixel night mode. But one thing that I realized is that even with using like setting it to higher like shutter time or like higher exposure time or slower exposure time, the Pixel doesn't seem to register it in its data because it's like still under 1 second. Well, the Huawei is just like the same as itself. So I don't know what's going on here. So this is definitely me using higher, like slower shutter speed. So anyways, here we can see how the Huawei is not doing so a good job at like cleaning up the sky. And then the way it renders the color of the scenes is also incorrect because it's supposed to be very yellow, like orange-ish. This part of the image here is correct. It's more almost accurate, like near accurate. But then again, it's not so as accurate as like other image that I can say as that is more accurate. So this is like almost near accurate rendition of this image. While the Pixel here, while the Huawei here is like making the image punchy and then like having that better exposure when compared to the Pixel. So in terms of the details, I feel like the Pixel has better detail, but then again, the Huawei does take 6 seconds to render this image, and that causes a motion blur. So there are reduction in quality. So like my best advice is don't use the Huawei night mode for taking the picture. Just use the semi night mode instead. But the Pixel here seems to do a lot better. The rendition here is a lot like the noises here is better, was masked or like hidden, cleaned out a lot better. The exposure here is acceptable. just a tad darker than that of Huawei. So in terms of the pleasantness of this image, I'm definitely going with the Pixel. So yeah, for these sets of images, the winner does goes to the Pixel. And now we're looking at the images that is taken with the night side on Pixel that was set to the highest maximum shutter speed. So it is going to be the slowest shutter speed. But one thing I realized with the Pixel is that the Pixel doesn't register that high shutter speed or like that slow shutter speed. It instead register the high ISO here. Like the main sensor shot here goes up to 23,000 ISO, while the ultra wide shot here goes up to 24,000 ISO. So that is one thing that I want to take or get out of the way. The point is here is that the Pixel doesn't register its higher or like slower shutter speed, but it did in turn record that high usage of the ISO, or like it's how it's bump up that ISO. So anyways, this one is taken with the Pixel's main sensor, and this one was taken with the Huawei main sensor. Now, for the Pixel, again, it has that really not good exposure, while the Huawei did it better at the cost of a higher, slower shutter speed. But I kind of like the way the Huawei exposed the image here. Even though it's not super sharp or super detailed, this time I hold it pretty well, because and then I feel like the OIS really do help a lot in like reducing the shakiness. So there isn't like almost no no motion blur going on here. It's just smudges. So yeah, between these two, again, I'm going to give the win to the Huawei just because how it like brighten, like it has that better overall exposure. While the Pixel here make it look like I was taking this image a few minutes after the sun sets. If you understand what I'm saying. So yeah, so it isn't like much better than Huawei. Like it also has smudges here and there, but you can tell there are the window here and then there is a door. I think this is all being caused by the phone like collecting. So in terms of like sharpness, and considering this time Pixel also takes a lot of time, I feel like it does get up to 5 or 6 seconds. The result on the Huawei is a lot better. Like you can tell what's going on in these photos when compared to the Pixel, even though they both has the same amount of slow shutter speed. Now for the Huawei make it looks like it's almost daylight. Like you can tell there are windows here, and then there are like door, and then part of the sampan here, or boat in English. So, and then you can tell like banana tree, while it's just like the exposure here is the exposure for the Pixel here is a lot worse. Well, I really enjoy the exposure for how the Huawei rendered this image. So for this set of photos or night shot, I'm going to give it the win to the Huawei just because how well it exposes the image. And I feel like it also kind of like I don't know, exposed a lot something in this like something in this house, so I'm not sure. But then again, yes, I'm going to give it the win to the Huawei. And now moving on to the ultra wide sensor shot, also taken with the maximum amount of exposure, or the slowest shutter speed. So you can tell by its high ISO here, but unfortunately the Pixel doesn't register that high shutter speed, like how long it takes to expose this image. So it is probably 4 to 6 seconds, but I'm not sure. While the Huawei did record the shutter speed, so it does take 8 seconds to expose the image. Now, both are terrible, and the Huawei is not even in focus. While the Pixel here did a better job at rendering this part of the photos, but you can't really tell what's going on. The image is noisy, and like both are practically unusable. Like you can't tell what's going on. I kind of like the way how the Pixel like brings up the color of the sky, like make it lighter, while on the main sensor it's just like keeping it blue. So yeah, that's that. Both are practically unusable, but I feel like this is a good like example. Because I don't have like tripod to like test the real capability of this maximum shutter exposure, I can't really give you guys the correct result. So this might not be what you're getting. Like these sets of images from the main sensor to the ultra wide sensor may not be what you're supposed to be getting out of your Pixel. But then again, for most people, we use handheld shots, so we're just like taking picture with only our hands. So I feel like it does sort of show a more realistic side of things, if that makes sense to you guys. But yeah, this shot from ultra wide sensor is practically unusable, and I'm not going to give any wins to both of them. So it's just like terrible. So moving on.